Okay, thank you, councillors. We're just doing a audio and visual check to make sure everything's working, especially the sound. So that's testing 1, 2, 3. We're hoping Councillor Somerville can hear us.
Yes, I can.
Can you see us, David?
I can't see you, but I can hear you.
You can't see us.
No.
Picture for the welcome.
Okay, councillors, being 6 o'clock, I'd like to declare the ordinary meeting of Blayney Shire Council for the 16th of May open, and thank you all very much for your attendance. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed, and as such, you'll be recorded as part of these proceedings tonight. Councillors, we do have a councillor who's going to attend this meeting via our online, and I need as a request for attendance for Councillor Somervale to attend by audio-visual link. There's a recommendation that request is accepted. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Price-Jones has moved that way. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Newstead has seconded that. Excuse me. I'll put that motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Declared carried. Welcome, Councillor Somervale, and we'll note that you are joining us live stream, and it's great to see you here this evening, and I will keep an eye out for you when you decide you'd like to comment or ask a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, and we can hear you very well. Thank you. Okay, councillors, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land on which we meet here this evening and pay my respects to the elders, both past, present and emerging. Apologies, we have no apologies. Disclosure of interest. I do have one disclosure of interest, councillors, and that is from the General Manager. The report for the 6th tonight, the report title is the assignment of the lease for Part 97 Adelaide Street. It is a pecuniary interest, and as such has been declared by the General Manager. As the reason being that his wife is a director of Ironbark Espresso Proprietary Limited, which is the current leaseholder of the cafe at 97 Adelaide Street. Blayney. Mr. GM, no other disclosures of interest for the business here this evening?
Mr. Mayor, no, I've received no disclosures today.
Thank you. Councillors, move through. We have no public forum and we have no mayoral minute. Confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 18th of the 4th. Do I have a mover that is a true and fair record? Councillor Ewan has moved that way. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Goswich. I'll put that motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Declared carried. Councillors, any matters arising from these minutes? Just briefly go through. Very good. Everyone happy? We'll move now through to page 9. Item 2, we do have a couple of notices of motion to consider here this evening, councillors. The first one is item 2, page 9, notice of motion, extension of the Bathurst Bullet train service. There's a motion there, 1, 2 and 3. It's been submitted by Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Reynolds, would you like to speak to your motion to potentially get a second?
I'd like to move it for a start. So.
I'd like to move it.
Yep.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Price-Jones has seconded that. Councillor Reynolds, and it's good to see you here this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, as in it's been on my mind for a number of months. I've been approached by a few people from the Millthorpe on Track group. I've had a look at the public transport. The state government is in the process of replacing the XPT and Explorer fleets at the moment. So the Bathurst Bullet, as per se, is an Explorer train. The one that comes through Blayney is an Intercity Express train, so an XPT. And with the new facility at Dubbo that's being built at the moment, the maintenance facility, it probably opens up a lot of opportunities. So the excuses being given previously about not being able to extend the Bathurst Bullet, as it's called, through to, say, Orange, is because of cleaning and security. So that bullet actually goes back to Lithgow, cleaned overnight, then is brought back out to Bathurst the next morning, and then starts a journey back to Sydney, those two bullet trains that do go through. So with this new fleet, and I believe there are 29 trains in the new fleet, so I've done a little bit of research this afternoon, 119 carriages, so I'm not expecting that the Bullet's going to be a long train compared to the XPT, which would probably be a bit longer. But the aim is to improve public transport to our two villages that currently receive train services, but sadly the one train each way, each day, being the XPT at the moment. Nothing in the morning, and then nothing coming back in the afternoon. So early in the morning, given the XPT goes west through Blayney just before midday. Or about 11:30, and then comes back about 4:30 in the afternoon through. So I just saw this as an opportunity with the new state government to actually go on and put it on their radar to potentially extend it, but maybe all the way through to Dubbo, so that there is a facility in Dubbo that can clean, maintain, as in has security, etc. So it would be a win for Orange City Council as well, probably Cabonne, or would be for Cabonne residents, and also for Dubbo residents. So I strongly encourage again that we talk with those. I know only Cabonne and Orange are in the JO, but see if there is an interest to try and get those extra train services with this new fleet. Now we have a bit of time. This is probably a couple of years, as in by the looks of it, it's been delayed, maybe up to 2.5 years or so at this stage before this new fleet comes in. But if we're putting it on the radar of the state government at the moment, then hopefully they can put it into the potential schedule and say, well, yes, that's workable now that we've got this facility in Dubbo to maintain those trains. It'll enhance our public transport through both Millthorpe and Blayney. I'd love to even take it further, but we'll just take small steps at a time and look at those two communities for a start. And we've got to get the tick off from the government at this stage. So it's quite a simple, or a couple of simple requests. One through to a letter through to a number of people, including the Premier, Minister for Transport and the local member. And secondly, Orange 360, given it's the tourism driver, so that also encompasses Orange and Cabonne as well. So trying to get that support, because if we go unified together, I think we'd have a much greater voice in, and also Dubbo, which is not on there, but it'd be good to at least make a connection with Dubbo Regional Council to see whether they're interested in supporting this concept as well, and get it on the radar, because it takes years, literally, to get anything changed or rescheduled. So if you start on the process now, by the time the new fleet's in operation, we hopefully may have a service available. So I just decided to be a little bit proactive and put this recommendation or motion up to Council, and I fully support it. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. I guess with speaking with or to my support of this motion, the fact I believe that Orange City Council just recently, in the last 2 or 3 months, have endorsed a continuation of the advocacy for this exact thing. So you're right on the money there, and especially about working together. I think there's no doubt that our regional community want to see better train services into Sydney, considering the slowdown of the momentum of the upgrades to the Great Western Highway. I think it's very appropriate that we redirect our attention to lobbying for better improved rail. Councillors, any further questions or comments? All good? I'll put that in motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Declared carried. Page 10, item 3, we have another notice of motion, councillors. Notice of motion, the voice referendum. There's a motion there that has been submitted by Councillor Price-Jones. I'm sure would like to move her notice of motion. Thank you, Councillor Price-Jones. Do I have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Ewan, I believe. Yep, thank you. Councillor Ewan has seconded that. Councillor Price-Jones.
I don't have a lot to say except to say that it's a very important social issue. It's a great opportunity for every Australian to participate in the referendum, as long as you're of voting age, of course. It'll be a great conversation around family dinner tables, I'm sure. So it's an opportunity to provide for the council here in Blayney and our community, provide the appropriate and relevant information, and which they may not necessarily get through social media and other media, which tends to be a little inflated. But I'm looking forward to the conversations, and I hope everyone gets behind hearing what there is to hear.
Thank you very much, Councillor Price-Jones, and thank you for bringing this motion forward. And you are correct, I certainly agree with the fact that Council has a role to play in what is a very, very important issue around an amendment to our Constitution. Regardless of what the issue is, it's very serious business, and if we can play a part in facilitating the education of that process over the next couple of months, I think that's well worth the effort. I'm sure it'll be supported by our community. Councillors, Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and yes, I support this notice of motion that's put up by Councillor Price-Jones. I think it's important that we hear from all sides. So again, the way that it's there, it's an opportunity for either the yes or the no case if they want to progress it in Blayney Shire. It's up to others to want to progress here in the Shire, but there's the opportunity to have it. I'd hate to see it get to a debate internally. I'd more want to see that the information is put forward from both sides, and then the community as a whole can make a decision on which way they're going to vote. I have a personal preference, but I love discussion and debate on it, and I love the ability of people to actually have a say. So I fully support that we open it to discussions, and hopefully both sides of the debate take up the opportunity and we have one or two successful discussions on the referendum before it's held later this year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillors, the mover, we have a seconder. Any further questions or comments? I'm looking online. Councillor Somervale's happy. I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Declared carried. Move now through to page 11. Item 4, questions taken on notice at the previous council meeting held 18th of April. There's a recommendation there that these be noted. Do I have a mover for this recommendation? Councillor Goswich has moved that way. Councillor Newstead has seconded that. Councillors, any questions or comments on the feedback in regards to questions on notice? Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate particularly question number 1, as in that we're going to move to develop a policy over the next 12 months, because we seem to get a lot of people knocking at our door with regard to films. With regard to question number 10, I think for the response, and it was interesting just after that council meeting that the detention basin filled up, but they hadn't actually done the work. So driving by this evening, it had been emptied out again. So hopefully that detention system is put in, and hopefully that system works well to stop a large amount of water escaping at one time once all the hard surfaces, so from roofs to concrete to bitumen, are put into that subdivision in coming months and years. So I just more thank the staff for their responses. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Price-Jones.
I have a question, just a question around item 6, question 3, where I've sort of looked for a more comprehensive report around the events that we've held over the last year, and wondering when we might expect that.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Price-Jones, we're intending that hopefully will go to the next council workshop, or if not the one after. The Manager of Tourism, Communication and Tourism has been on extended leave but is back next week, and we are hoping to have that report wrapped up and provide that information.
Thank you, Mr. GM. Thank you, Councillor Price-Jones. Councillors, we're still looking at this report. Any further questions or comments? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Declared carried. Page 14, item 5, application for leave of absence. We have a recommendation there. Do I have a mover for this recommendation? Councillor Newstead, thank you. Have moved that way. Councillor Reynolds has seconded that. I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Declared carried. Move now through to page 15, item 6, the Blayney Shire Disability Inclusion Working Group. We have a recommendation there that I'd like to move that councillor nominate Councillor Price-Jones as chair of the Blayney Shire Disability Inclusion Working Group. We'll have a seconder for this recommendation. Councillor Reynolds has seconded that. Councillors, any questions or comments? I'd like to acknowledge Councillor Newstead and the work he's done up to date on that, and would believe that Councillor Price-Jones will be a great replacement in that role as chair of the Disability Inclusion Working Group. No questions or comments. I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Declared carried. Move now through to page 17. Item 7, report of council investments as at the 30th of April 2023. recommendation there, 1 and 2, councillors. Do I have a mover for these recommendations? Thank you. Councillor Price-Jones has moved that way. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Goswich. Councillors, questions or comments in regards to this report of council investments? Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and just a quick comment. It's good to see that we're currently holding, and I know it's a date in time, but our unrestricted cash at around that $2 million mark. It's been, since I've been on council for more than 5 years, it's been an issue, and we've finally been able to build it up. Now, it is going to ebb and flow if we pay for projects and stuff that may drop a little bit, but it's great that we're sort of holding, and the projection is still around about that 2.8, but again, it's a projection. You don't actually know until you get there, but we've been trying to move in the right direction over the last 12 to 18 months because technically that's our solvency, as in if we don't have any unrestricted cash, then we may have a problem. So it's good that we've got ourselves into that position. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillors, any further questions or comments? Looking around the room, checking online. All good? I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Declared carried. Move now through to page 22. Item 8, the quarterly budget review statement. Recommendations there 1 and 2. Do I have a mover for these recommendations? Thank you. Councillor Reynolds has moved that way. Goswich has seconded that. Councillors, questions or comments in regards to the quarterly budget review statement? Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd love someone else if they'd like to, but I'll be very quick again. Look, as in we're travelling quite well, as in potentially at a substantive loss on the profit and loss side on projections, but we won't know until the end of the financial year. And it's also other entities that we rely on, particularly Central Tablelands Water, and from what I've observed last financial year, that probably will come in a little bit better than our little projection at the moment, but that's sort of smoke and mirrors, I suppose you could say, to some extent, because it doesn't actually impact on our bottom line profit and loss. It's more the entity as a whole. But look, a couple of things. I think we've underdone interest a little bit. We've probably $100,000 or more going on that report we just approved prior on, I think it was $94,000, and that's seems to be going one way at the moment, so it'll probably be over $100,000 in the next couple of months. But again, it's an estimate, and I'd rather be under and then come in above with income. And the other good one at this stage is the wages cost. They're still 34%, with 25% of the year left to go. So in past years we've been very, very close to the line, and then our wage bill in the last quarter has blown out a little bit. So it looks much better this financial year, sitting, I think it was at that 34% mark, with wage expended or unexpended wages up till the end of the third quarter. So I think that they're my main two observations, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Reynolds. The GM would like to make a comment.
Mr Mayor, Councillor Reynolds, just on your wages comment, you're correct. We are tracking quite well, but we will come close to the line again. We've implemented a 4-day week, and we are rolling structured overtime on that Friday, while the weather has been particularly good over the last 10 weeks, and we've been able to make a lot of headway while that weather has been good. So it is looking good, but I will flag that whilst the sun is shining, we are getting in and getting the job done as well.
Right, thank you,
Mr Mayor, fully support. I was more,
Councillor
I'd prefer us not to go into the red in the wages category. So, as in, I'd rather have a little bit off our sleeves than nothing there. As far as I can recall, 12 months ago, we were looking at about 24% left, and that's right off the top of my memory. I haven't looked at the documents. So, as in, there's a little bit more comfort room, and fully endorse, as in doing while the sun shines, particularly getting some of those projects done, and probably we'll start pulling up in the next week or two on that overtime on the Fridays. And I'll talk about one of the projects when we come to that report. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Okay, thank you, councillors. We're still here considering the quarterly budget review statement. I have a mover in Councillor Reynolds. I have a seconder in Councillor Goswich. If there's no further questions or comments, I will put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Declared carried. Move now through to page 26, item 9, the draft 2023-24 and 2026-27 delivery program and 2023-24 operational plan. So recommendations there, councillors 1, 2, 3 and 4. Do I have a mover for these recommendations? Thank you, Councillor Newstead has moved that way. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ewan has seconded that. Councillors, questions or comments in regards to our budget, the operational plan and delivery plan? There's a wonderful snapshot of what we're going to do in the next little while, which is pretty impressive. Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. You know I couldn't go without saying something about it.
I would be disappointed if you hadn't.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Some of the biggest challenges with the budget are the assumptions, and we just don't know what wages are going to go up yet. We still haven't got a determination as far as I'm aware, unless General Manager has heard anything.
Have we an update today? I think we're expecting...
Through Mayor, nothing formal. We are close to where we've assumed what we have heard, not on the record.
Thank you. Councillor Reynolds.
Some of the other challenges, including Royal Fire Service costs that have blown out well above inflation or the pegging rate, and a lot of our other costs, as in that have just blown out because of inflation, as in that. And of course, we saw high diesel prices and other commodity prices, so and gravel costs blew out, etc. So look, as in it's based on a lot of assumptions. I take my hat off to the staff that have compiled this document. It's a fantastic document. Just speaking of some of the projects, and there's a lot, but a couple of the good road projects in the near future, both Neville Road and also Hobbies Yards Road in the next couple of years. Some fairly substantial expenditures, particularly Hobbies Yards Road, which I think is about 2 million, and Neville Road 1 million. Finishing King George Oval, hopefully most of it will be done this financial year, but I suspect there'll be a little bit in the next financial year. A couple of toilet blocks in Blayney that we still need to come up with solutions. But footpaths, and you know that's one of my favourite topics, Mr Mayor.
Favourite topic, yes.
One of them, I have many. But more footpaths in the next year, including a lot more in Blayney, which is very important, and also places like Newbridge, where we'll get a substantial footpath, and plans to actually further in this 4-year plan, so in the delivery program, plans to actually extend that footpath further. So it's again coming towards, as in, and I wish I could see the sunset, but particularly in the villages outside of Millthorpe and Blayney town itself, as in finishing the footpath network, so that we're going to do that was requested by the community. So we're nearly there, and even in Millthorpe, there's been, with Glenorrey Road and Elliott Street about to start, or if it's not started, and again, I didn't drive there today to have a look, but there's major headway going to meet our active movement strategy and get Blayney Shire out and about, and that's the one thing that really impresses me, and I'm going slightly off topic, the amount of usage of those footpaths in particular when we put them in. They're not just sitting there and gathering rain and frost, they're actually being used by the community, and so that shows that there was a need. And Unwin and Stabbock Street in Millthorpe, again, that project, the main part of that project, start next financial, well, hopefully be finished next financial year, started and finished. We've done a little bit of work at the head of the curve and gutter, at the head of the cul-de-sac, but to get both of those streets drained, and again, one of my objectives when I first came onto council, as I know I was lobbied by a number of people about the drainage issues there, and finally we've been able to come up with a funding source and a bit of council money and come up with a solution there. And also another important one is the sewage forecast for the next 4 year. The sewage fund is in the black for all of those 4 years, which is something we've been working on. When I first came on council, we were in the red, as far as I can recall, and substantially in the red, and we had a plan to eventually get us into the black, and by the looks of it, we're about there. Speaking of capping or cost increases, as in the general rates, expected to only go up by 3.7%, and I only say only, but that's about half the rate of inflation, which is our major revenue source. So it makes it very, very hard with inflation running at roughly double, hopefully coming back. But the problem is we've had increases in costs that we haven't been able to cover, because last year was in the 2s and inflation was running at around 7. So we've got behind for 2 years, and technically we may be 10% behind. Where we possibly should be, but the wage bill is a large component of our costs, so that taking that out, we're probably nowhere near that. Now, and I stand to be corrected, but as far as I understand, both sewerage and 0.5% because of increased costs, because of the contractors' costs, etc. So, and important to note, that money is not being hived off. That money, the sewerage money, has to stay in the sewerage fund, and the garbage money has to stay in the, I don't think it's termed the garbage fund, but the waste recovery fund or something like that. Those monies have to stay there. They can't be used for general purposes or allocated anywhere else. So we're just making sure those funds stay in the black, which is very, very important for strong financial management. So the one issue or challenge, I suppose, I do have, and I might foreshadow a notice of motion for next council meeting, is that as part of our long-term financial review, that we actually look at capital expenditure on our equipment. But as in that is not tonight, I'm just more foreshadowing that I might flag something there as part of that long-term financial review of Blayney Shire Council. So I think that sums it up from what I've read of the budget, and I spent a fair bit of time reading it. When you're sitting in a hospital bed, there's not a lot else to do. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Councillor. That was a very good summary, and I think it's a budget, certainly operational plan we can be proud of. Certainly lots of money prioritising on our roads and associated infrastructure. But just picking up the important point that Councillor Reynolds has made in regards to our rate increase, which was pegged at 3.7, and as he's mentioned, inflation's running at twice that. This is our main source of income, so it's critical that we understand that this, like most people's budgets, are under pressure, and an example of that topical at the moment, and that's the emergency services levy increase they have to pay, which wipes out a third of our future income for the upcoming year. Gone. So as well as all the other increases that Councillor Reynolds has touched on, above and beyond the 3.7, it just reflects how tight local government has it in regards to delivering those services when the income is not keeping up with the actual cost of business. But it is a good budget, and I would look forward to any community feedback in regards to it. Councillors, looking around the room, we have Councillor Somervale would like to comment. Thank you, Councillor Somervale.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I hope you can hear me.
Speak up. Yep.
Like Councillor Reynolds, I'll be brief. Just one very specific comment in relation to the future sewerage infrastructure subsidy, which I see is going up by $4 to $61. This is not really a fee or a charge which needs to be reviewed every year by reference to inflation, because it is a subsidy. It's the amount by which the sewer ratepayers are subsidising the developers, because as you remember, when we did our solution plan, it was recommended that we charge quite a lot more for the sewage development contribution in both Blayney and Milkrock. Now, that charge should reflect what the subsidy really is. Now, the subsidy doesn't necessarily go up because of inflation. The subsidy goes up if the amount required to be subsidised is greater. And given the amount of development that's been going on in the Shire in the last 12 months or so since we adopted this subsidy, I suspect that the amount of the subsidy is even greater now. The more the development we get, and the more developers are relieved of their responsibility to fully contribute to the hedgeworks charges for sewer, then the greater the subsidy is for the rest of the community. So I just wonder whether that needs to be looked at, perhaps before we end up adopting this this budget, as to whether, in fact, when you look at the amount of development going on, the amount of subsidy is greater, and therefore it should go up by more than 4%, $4. That was my first point. And that's something that can be taken on notice as we go through the exhibition of the document. And my only other comment is what has occurred to me is it's really important that we get on quickly with our review of our financial sustainability. And I know progress has been slow and acknowledged to have been slow, and I'm the first to recognise the amount of work that's gone in by the staff in getting this budget to the stage it is now. But what is pretty clear from the red over the next 4 years, when you include what is looking like $1 million or so operational loss this year, and that's before the increased depreciation on the buildings revaluation, and you look at the figures over the course of the 4-year period, there's something like it's in the red every year, certainly for the general fund. The cumulative loss of between 4 and 5 million. And as Councillor Reynolds pointed out before, we've got about 2.8 million on current projections in cash available to fund losses not otherwise required. That's not enough for the next 4 years. The importance of getting on with the financial sustainability review is to come to a landing on whether we need a special rate variation, because if we do, we need to start working on that reasonably quickly, so that this current council, rather than the next council, can understand just whether one's necessary, and if it is, to get the process underway. So I just encourage the staff to get on with that review and to come up with any solutions that we might find to bolster our sustainability. That's all from me, Mr.
Right,
Mayor.
thank you very much, Councillor Somerville. I think we'll take that on notice about the subsidy in regards to the developer contribution charges during the exhibition period. Certainly worth looking at. Councillors, any further questions or comments in regards to our operational plan and delivery plan? I know there's a lot of work has gone in by everybody into this the last 3 months or so, and I thank you for your time and consideration of it. We have a mover, we have a seconder. I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Declared carried. Okay, councillors, now move through to page 41. Item 10, Infrastructure Services Monthly Report. Recommendation there. Report be received and noted. Do I have a mover for this recommendation? Councillor Reynolds has moved it. Councillor Somerville, I believe, has seconded that. Councillors, questions or comments in regards to this, to the Infrastructure Services Monthly Report? Lots going on as usual. Councillor Reynolds, would you have a question or comment in regards to this item?
I'll just make a couple of comments,
Thank
positive
you.
comments. As you know, I was hoping someone else would take the lead. 'Cause I don't like
No, you're going well for
ta-
someone
taking
who's...
the, So again, a huge amount of works that this council's been doing. Fantastic that we're getting towards, I won't say the end, but at least into finishing a lot of these projects. And one that I drove on tonight and hadn't driven on in a week and a half was Forest Reese Road, as in really come up, as in it's not sealed yet, of course, but coming by tonight, as in really come up very nicely from the flooding, the damage to the road. It's been a long-term project. I think it's been 3 years since we first put that project on their radar. So the outcome, as in hopefully will give us a very good drainage issue, but also the amount of work and effort we've spent on the I think you call it sub-base, is just fantastic. So the longevity, sort of future-proofing those types of roads, as in, it'd be very, very disappointing if that road failed, because the expenditure, and I'm not saying it's going to, but as in the council's undertaken a new way of doing its roads in the last couple of years. It seems to be putting a lot more into that top few centimetres or half foot or whatever, and again I don't know the depth. So anyway, it looks superb, and I'm sure when it's sealed, and the director may be able to give us an indication of what date it's booked in with the weather forecast, and whether we're looking at a winter seal or a summer seal.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Mr Director, any updates, recent updates on that work mentioned on Forest Reef Road?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the tentative seal date is the 22nd of May, pending weather, and we're intending on laying a primer seal due to the cold weather, with the intention that will need to be resealed next financial year.
Thank you, Mr Director. Councillor Reynolds.
A supplementary then, and it probably will be taken on notice, any idea of how much, given the distance, that the extra seal will potentially cost council, going on some of the other roads that we've done that sort of winter seal, I suppose you could call it. And has that been taken into account in any budgetary? So again, I'm very happy to take it on notice if the director doesn't have an answer.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the seal cost in total is about $100,000. It is typically more expensive to do it in two halves, but certainly not as expensive as having a seal fail. We've accounted this in our budget review of this project, and it's within allocations.
Thank you, Mr Director. Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Any further questions, comments?
Mr Mayor, I was also going to just talk about Gooley's Creek. I drove on Euroambang Road a couple of weeks ago, and it had just been sealed. I don't know if it's the day before or a couple of days before, so that really looked good, as in it's been a very rough section of road for a lot of years, so it was great we had the opportunity to get that little section of road repaired and done properly. And I suppose a supplementary there, with regard to other damage on that road and the Flyers Creek wind farm, one assumes that most of the major work to repair won't be done until all the heavy traffic, the big trucks, are finished going on particular sections, like the concrete trucks plus the blade trucks, etc. So it may well be, and after an answer, I don't know the answer, as in, could it be next year before Euroambang Road is actually properly repaired, or is there a time frame that they'll do a stage if they finish the northern section firstly? They'll repair that section. So again, the director may or may not have an answer on that one.
I suppose you'll be looking for a project update in regards to Flyers Creek, Mr Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that the Flyers Creek Wind Farm have a condition of their consent whereby they have to maintain sealed roads. They have been performing spot repairs for the last 12 months. We have meetings with them weekly and fortnightly to ascertain their progress. They've moved to maintaining Gap Road while they're utilising that, and then they will move back in. I'm hoping most of it will be sorted before Christmas. Once we get a warmer weather where we can seal and dress all those patches, it should be completed then.
Thank you, Mr Director. Well, that's positive.
Supplementary on that one, but I'll also ask at the same time about Torwood and the top half or northern half of Euroambang Road and any update there with Cadia. But where trucks have, and you can see where they've created ruts or compacted in the road, so water's going to start running down the road. It's not going to go across to the table drain or the side of the road. So is that part of the reconstruction, that they have to bring that back so that there is a flow off after all the heavy trucks, And secondly, is there any update on the northern section of Wombang and Torwood Road?
Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, we raised rutting in the lanes only a fortnight ago. So it's on their list for repairs to maintain that 3% crossfall in general across the road. In terms of Cadia, a permit was issued today actually for them to commence drainage works, which they intend on doing at the end of this month. It's anticipated though that the road repairs probably won't start until late September due to the weather.
Right, thank you, Mr Director. Thank you. Just checking. Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Just looking around the room, Councillor Goswich.
I also have a couple. The footpath in Elliott Street, are we doing that in-house now? And is that got an extra cost on that? Are we doing the footpath in Elliott Street? Is that in-house now? Council is doing it? Not the contractor like we were told a few months ago?
I believe there's a part service, so you'll see us there doing some drainage works, and then we'll be having a contract.
So the smart hub and lighting access, it seems to be going on. I think I started talking about this when we first got on council. When are we actually going to get this sorted, I suppose, is the question.
Mr Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, there's a consultative company that's really holding the commissioning of the back end of all the smarts to the smart hub. There's been issues getting the handover from them for the last almost 8 months. So I'm working closely with the General Manager to get that resolved and commissioned.
It has taken quite a while.
Yeah.
Oh, and just to correct myself, we're constructing Elliott Street in-house, sorry, because we put out an RFQ and it wasn't to budget. And we've done a calculation of in-house and it's cheaper and we have the resources available. Yeah.
And just one further one. The King George Oval with the delay of the car park, is that going to add an extra cost to the project?
Mr Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, no. No, it won't.
All right, thank you.
Hey, thank you. Councillor Reynolds.
Sorry,
you'd exhausted all your
thank
questions.
you, Mr Mayor. No, Councillor Goswich has fired another question. Something I noticed a few weeks ago, and we may be doing it, the corner of Victoria and Elliott Street in Millthorpe. So as you come around that corner and where the footpath will come around and then hopefully go across to the bowling club side, seem to have been in the last year or so quite heavily eroded, as in there's a lot of water seemed to come around and dug, and it's got quite deep and sort of undermined, just very much close to the Bluestone gutter. But as in, could council just have a look at that, and it may just take a little bit of hot mix, I don't know, or cold mix or whatever it is to fix it, as in short term, or whether there is a need for a longer term solution. So unless the director's already aware of it, because as I said, I haven't seen it in a couple of weeks.
Hey, thank you, Councillor Reynolds. I'm sure the director will take that on notice. Okay, councillors, still talking about Councillor Price-Jones. Question, comment?
I had just a quick question around the landscaping for the Bellabula River Stage 3. It's no date on when that will be completed, but winter being the ideal time to plant trees and things, it would be great to have it earlier and get that done this winter.
Mr Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that's probably unlikely, given that Council's requested a landscape architect take a review of that. That'll be tabled to the next workshop. Due to the lead time on that, it's unlikely we'll have it completed this winter.
Does that defer it to next winter, given that it's much safer to plant trees and gardens during winter?
Probably look at seeking extension of the funding and doing that, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Price-Jones. Councillors, still considering the infrastructure, Director of Infrastructure's report, monthly report. Around the room, Councillor Somervale's happy. Well, not happy, he's sick, but he's going all right. Okay, councillors, we have a mover, we have a seconder. I'll put that motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Declared carried. Moving now through to page 45, item 11, planning proposal to amend the Blayney Local Environmental Plan, Clark Street reclassification. Recommendation there 1 and 2. Councillors, do I have a mover for these recommendations? Councillor Goswich has moved that way. Councillor Price-Jones has seconded that. Councillors, any questions or comments in regards to this proposal? Seems straight. Councillor Reynolds, you have a...
Probably a flow-on from the proposal, as in, from my recollection, this is a sort of a missing link with footpaths to sort of link in around. Will this potentially expedite so that we can link 2 streets worth of footpaths to actually create a more, I don't know if the right word is circular, but integrated or connected system? So I don't know whether this will have any benefits or disadvantages in doing it. I hope there's no disadvantages, but whether this will have any benefits in being enable council to then actually develop a footpath through that little area and out onto the other street.
This goes back to your further comment about your great love of footpaths. I think
it's the great missing link.
I guess you're saying what options will be created by it to amend our pedestrian mobility plan for future footpaths.
It's there on our active movement strategy. It's just with regard to land and land ownership, and as in whether we have to do any acquisition or and I don't know whether that's been taken into account within this, and maybe it needs to be taken on notice. My question might be the better way to go, unless the director has an answer.
Yeah.
Oh, I can answer in part.
Well, yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. You'll recall that there was a report. The purpose of this was to resolve encroachments in the road reserve. As it stands, it's community land. You could still construct a footpath on that. To do links into other streets to the south, there would be acquisitions that required to be made.
So potentially, yes. Thank you, Mr. Director. We love our footpaths and our circle. We have a question from Councillor Somerville.
Yes, just an observation, Mr. Mayor. I reckon this could be a great content for a program on utopia. We resolved a year or so ago that we needed to sell off part of the road to rectify the encroachment. Now it turns out that in fact it's not a road, it's community land. So we've got to change it from community land to operational land. Then we've got to make it a road, and then once we've finally got it a road, we can give effect to our decision 12 months ago. So I think there's about six stages in the process we didn't quite realise when we made a rather simple resolution a year ago.
Very good summary. Very good summary, Councillor Somerville. Spot on, in fact. Councillor Reynolds.
Just as a bit of trivia, I do understand the ABC is about to release a new series of Utopia. So
well, we could all look forward to that. Okay, thank you, councillors. We're now considering the planning proposal to amend the Blayney Local Environmental Plan in regards to Clark Street. I think we've had a good understanding of what's needed, the bureaucracy in full flight. No other questions or comments, councillors. I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Declared carried. Councillors, we do have matters to be dealt with in closed committee, so in accordance with the Local Government Act 93 and the Local Government General Regulation 2005, in the opinion of the General Manager, the following business is of a kind as referred to in section 10.2 of the Act and should be dealt with in a part of the meeting closed to the media and public. Can I have a mover that we go into closed committee? Councillor Reynolds has moved that way. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Newstead has seconded that. I'll put that. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Declared carried. Let the minute Okay, thank you, councillors. We're now back into open council and we're live streaming, and we've come out of the consideration of item 12, page 2, assignment of lease for part 97 Adelaide Street. The recommendations which was approved: 1, that the report on the assignment of lease for part 97 Adelaide Street be received. 2, that council endorse transfer of the existing lease of part 97 Adelaide Street, Blayney, lot 25, section 14, DP 758121, to the new business proprietor, and that council endorse execution of the associated lease documentation by the mayor, the deputy mayor, or councillors under seal if required. Okay, councillors, that concludes our meeting. Before I close the meeting, I'd just like to acknowledge the very sad and sudden passing of former Director of Environmental Services in Darryl Riley. Darryl was a director here from 1996, I believe, to about 2008. And I'd just like, on your behalf and behalf of the staff, and I will be talking to his wife and pass on our deepest condolences. He was a very committed man to local government and the time that he spent here at Blayney. So I'd just like to acknowledge Darryl's passing, and as I said, I will be passing on condolences to the family. So, councillors, that does conclude our meeting this evening. I thank Councillor Somervale for being online and trust that his health improves very, very quickly. And thank you all very much for your attendance. And I declare the meeting closed.